and knew that I realized being a good engineer doesn't make a good business. I need to figure out how to make a good business. And that's when I started my journey, just reading business books.
Today, I'm fulfilling my promise to you with another amazing guest. Tony Chiappetta joins me today. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mike.
If you're familiar with Tony already, you have an idea of the amazing insights that are coming your way. And if you haven't yet heard of Tony, you'll be happy you did today. And here's why. Tony Chiappetta is the founder and CEO of Advanced Microcomputing Concepts Modern IT, or AMC Modern IT for short. His mission is to change the IT game to people first instead of focused on fixing tech problems. Heartbeats, not hardware, is his trademark. I love that, by the way, Tony. His journey includes starting AMC IT only 2 years after graduating from USC, calling on more than 1,000 people before landing his first client, working himself and his team to the bone before finally realizing that simplifying his approach and creating process in his business was the key to faster growth, higher profits, happier employees, and more personal freedom. And we're going to hear all about how he's done that right now. Tony, I start every podcast with the same simple question. How did it happen for you?
By believing I could, and then going through my journey through the ups and downs to figure out what my purpose was and doing what I do and aligning that to the service, to the structure, to the outcomes that we create.
Okay, and the believing that you could. So that's something that a lot of people, including me from time to time, struggle with. Even though I've started a couple of businesses, sometimes inside I believe I could, but then when I think about all the things that have to happen to make it happen, I start to believe that maybe I can't. How do you handle, or how did you know that you could? Or how did you know to believe that you could?
I don't know, Mike. I was 23, 24, and there was just something inside me, and I was raised to go to school, get a job, get a good retirement plan and go on. But there was just something inside me that crushed my soul. And I felt like I had such a higher calling or purpose. And I didn't know what it was, but I just felt like I needed to do more. And I, being inside of I had a great job, but and I traveled and did some really amazing stuff, but I just didn't see myself working up the corporate ladder for decades, as a 22, 23-year-old kid that had a long way to go, and there was a large line in front of him no matter what direction I went. Right. And kind of being in a cube and not really being able to get out and do what I felt I was more than capable of. And I didn't know what that was yet, but I just felt that I could and I should. And if I was going to do it, that was the time, because I was still living with my mom, which is not embarrassed to say, or maybe I am. And it was easier to do because I had a car payment and that was about it. And some school debt, but that's a lot less than, I didn't have a family and children and a whole lot of major responsibility that put me to think that now is the time. And if I'm going to do it, jump in with 2 feet, give it my best. And if I fail, I can live with it.
Right. And when you, so that the mentality that you sort of went into school with or came out with, get a good job, with benefits, all that stuff, is that something that came from the way you were brought up? Or was it something that maybe your colleagues were in classmates were sort of thinking when you were in school?
That's what my father did. He was born in Racine, got a job in the factory at 16, worked all the way through, retired from that job at 36 because they wanted him to move back to Wisconsin, and all of the kids vetoed that. So he got another job at a great company and did another amazing job building that company up. And that was the safe move. And I would equate that to, that at the end of the day, that's our ego's job, is to keep us safe. And that that puppy pumps out 50,000 thoughts a day. Most of them aren't so kind to help protect us. And I'm air quoting right now. And that'll creep in to say, just do this. It's safe. You don't want to be in a spot where you're not safe.
Right.
And as you get deeper than that, as I got deeper in that, I was going through a little bit of a spiritual journey at the time too, to really understand life on a deeper level. I started tapping into more of the I could, and the belief that's, I don't know, maybe a layer deeper than the ego, to shine through that and just say, you know what, I'm going to give that a go. Why not? What's the worst that could happen?
And
So I did.
where did that spiritual journey sort of come from? Was it like, I'm wondering what it was like, because spiritual means a whole lot of different things to a whole lot of different people. What did it mean to you, and what was the journey like then?
You know, so I'll get completely vulnerable with you. I was raised Catholic. I was lucky enough to, after I graduated college, I went to Europe and just did like a road trip through Europe. And I got to the Vatican and I saw this beautiful city made of pretty much gold. And outside the Vatican walls, there was all these people that were hungry and begging, and little kids that were trying to get into my backpack to steal stuff.
Right.
And then, so I got through that, and I had to go through a turnstile and pay, I think, 9,000 lira or whatever it was at the time to get there. And it just made me question things about my religion that I felt at the time, maybe there's a deeper sense. And I love my Catholic upbringing and the morals that I was raised with. And for me, though, my journey took me to trying to understand from a different level, and started reading and learning a little bit more about Eastern religions, and kind of coming to an understanding that it's all somewhat coming from the same spot. And I don't mean to turn this into too much of a of a different twist and turn here, but that's kind of where I was at the time when I was 23. I was questioning what I was brought up with and looking internally, and then started getting into things like meditation and looking for something that was a little bit deeper than what I felt when I went to the Vatican and I saw this facade of all of this wealth and riches, and I just really struggled with that, Mike. I don't know what it was, and like something happened, and it just turned me on this journey to like get deeper into more of a spiritual than a religious quest for myself.
Okay. It's so I was raised Catholic too, and I at some point after high school, or probably in high school, I started to be like, I appreciate the structure and the belief system, but I was always a little bit like, I think I've heard everything that you say, because I've been coming to church for, all this time, and soon it starts to repeat itself. And I thought to myself, man, if I don't have it in my head now of what it takes to be a good person, I'm probably, I don't know, there's probably something wrong with me. So I thought to myself, why? And then I just kind of stopped. And it's interesting that you kind of continued, exploring, because I just kind of stopped. And that was before the priest stuff became really well known, and then all of the others, the extravagance that you mentioned. I mean, just recently, there were several Vatican officials that were indicted because they stole millions and millions of dollars. It's
which is heartbreaking, right? And that's the intention is pure. I like to believe that, at least. But for me, I wanted something deeper. And so that's kind of what took me down into a place where I tried to separate the ego from kind of my subconscious, and listening to my gut, and just believing and trusting. And so that's what my father at the time, my pops, who's probably my best friend as well, now, was like, what are you doing, son? This is ridiculous. You need to, you're, and I started having some traction. I was working for this large corporate environment, and I after calling 1,000 people and having 999 no's to get my first yes. And then to be able to come into, 2 locations with 50 users a piece for IT, like I could do that with my hands tied behind my back. And I came in and fixed a massive problem that they were happening. I felt wonderful about it. And I was off. I was like, I have, like, I'm building, I have a customer. I'm on my way. I'm doing this.
Right.
And I remember that the day my dad said, "What are you doing? This is ridiculous. I didn't send you to school for you to blow it all." And it was just like, oh, gut punch. Appreciate that. Know that that's coming from a place of love and wanting to protect me. But I'm getting after this. I can do this. And so I did. And so I got another client. Real estate was booming in the early 2000s, and an agent would leave to another real estate broker. And so they would refer me because I really enjoy just helping people and being social and understanding what their problems are, and in fixing their business challenge, or what's inflicting their ability to live their best life, which oftentimes were IT problems for my experience. I would solve that, and I would help them. I'd go on my way. And so I would get referred to other places, and I was off. And that kind of started my journey of trying to figure out how to go from being an engineer to building a business. And as I started, it was just call me when there's a problem. And the nature of my business was 100% reactive. And so as I grew, I needed to bring on somebody and kind of just say, all right, just be ready, because you're going to get stuff from all over. And while I could draw from my experience, the people that I hired certainly could not. And so I would have to kind of train them up, and they would kind of start, and then I would come in and finish as necessary. And eventually they'd get okay before they left to go get another job or whatnot. But I would build out this business model and think that if I just start doing some proactive services, like making sure backups are happening every day, making sure antivirus is happening every day, I could keep growing this because I'm being proactive. And so I started doing and building a business around these proactive tools and services. And eventually, the business model was take any revenue that came in as well, because at the time, any revenue was good revenue. And so I learned the hard way that that's not true. And I built the company with no real set structure. I built it with, if you didn't want to have any monthly contract, we were your guys. If you want us to just do a project, we're your guys. If you want to have a complete full service, flat rate for everything, we're your guys, and everything in between. And it just created this chaos. I had hundreds of different tools eventually, because I needed to keep solving problems that I thought I could rely on technology tools. And I built it to a point of about 23, 24 people, hundreds of clients, of pure and complete chaos of reactive. I was in the reactive spiral of death, because every day was just a new issue. And the guys I would hire, the girls I would hire, I couldn't train them on how to just sit there and be ready for anything that comes your way. Much less, hey, there's a new person starting at this company. Set them up the way I have it in my head.
Yeah,
for this
osmosis,
3-hour setup,
right.
do it perfectly for my head. Oh, and by the way, I'm not in the office today, so do it from my head and just pretend, and then I'll wait for the person to call. And I just would get yelled at. I became the chief apology officer. And eventually an employee came crying, or came to me, and I just gave him a raise, and he kind of shoved it back on, like, proverbially across the table, and said, you can keep your money, boss. There's no, I spent the last 2 weekends in a server room, different server rooms. I can't deal with this. I don't want to be responsible. I just want to go back to my old way of not being responsible for the outcomes for every one of our clients. And that became a huge inflection point for me. I actually have it on my wall because it was 7/7/2014, which is the day of this recording, Mike. 7 years later.
7 years later. Oh, cool.
Yeah, interesting. And so I wrote on my wall. It's still there, and it's probably etched on my window. That marker probably is now completely permanent. Of our turning point, I said, this is the day that we have to change things. My purpose at the time was to improve the lives of those around me. and inspire others to do the same, starting with our employees. And I was killing them. So I had to figure out what to do there. That was part of the journey.
Okay, so you said so many great things there. I want to just explore a few of them if you don't mind. First off, 999 no's to get the first yes. Now, you started this, you answered the how did it happen question by saying that you believed that you could, by believing that I could, or something along those lines. And I'm wondering, along the path of those 999 no's, was there a point, or were there points where you began to question whether you believed, or were you just like, that's the thing I wonder, like, who's going to do 999 things to get the one thing that they actually want? Not many people are going to do that.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was exactly 999,
No,
but
that's fine.
I was
That's
all the
fine.
way through R in the yellow pages of going through everything that looked like a business in the yellow pages that looked like I could use IT support before I finally came
Right.
to where I needed to be. And so, yeah, when I picked up the phone, I experienced disbelief because I was on the other end where people would call me asking for help. Now I'm calling and reaching out to them, which was uncomfortable for me. I felt like I was that sales guy that had a stigma. And then as I called, and I didn't know what even I was even asking for. Talking to the receptionist saying, "Do you need IT support?" wasn't working, so I had to figure out that I need to make sure I'm calling for the person that handles IT. And then so that was frustrating because I was burning dials, and I didn't. When I finally got somebody on the phone, I would cramp up and be nervous about it even. And then eventually finally got to finally started getting to decision makers, and they would say no, and I'd be like, okay. And I just keep going down the phone list. I didn't have a CRM. I didn't have anything. I literally was just going through the yellow pages with my finger down
Just
each of the
writing notes,
different
or, yeah.
each one, and just looking, all right, next. And then it was tough because I was already being told you can't do it. I wasn't sure in my own head if I could do it. Like the ego kicks in with thoughts. I believed it in my gut, but my head starts having different thoughts. And so, yeah, like, of course. But then you get little breakthroughs that
Yeah.
reaffirm where you're going. Finally, some guys, wonderful guy, he just recently passed away, said, yeah, I'm having some problems. I'll give you a shot. And I was like, great. How does I'm free next Tuesday, which I had nothing in my calendar whatsoever, but I tried to make it seem like I did. Yeah, that works for me. So I went and talked to him, and he just said, you know what, kid? And he was a little Italian guy. And I remember like little sausage fingers, like hairy, like hairy hands. And he was just like the sweetest, like, man. He's like, you know what, kid? You remind me of myself when I was your age. I'm going to give you a shot. That's how I got my first customer. And his company called me a few weeks later when they were having some issues, finally, and I was off. And then, bam, we were off and running.
That's a cool story. Was he, so with the fingers, was he have a construction company or mason or something like that, or just?
He was a real estate guy.
He's a real estate guy.
He was a broker, but he was like, like
Yeah, I
I
know.
think of like my old Italian relatives that might have a pinky ring or something.
Okay.
And he couldn't have been more, like, he was all of 5'2", 5'3" with some boots on, and just like the nicest older man that just said, all right, I'll give you a shot. Probably he probably didn't have anything better to solve it. I just came at the right time, but he did give me a shot.
Yeah.
I owe him a ton of he was what started it in a lot of ways.
You said also that when you first started taking on business, you were basically one size fits all. Like, if you have something, I can do it, right? No matter what you need, I can do it. And it resonated with me because when I got started in my first business, I was 26 or 27 years old, and my partner and I were just really dedicated to doing whatever we had to make it a success. And I remember thinking, so we had a real hard time saying no to anything, because we always equated saying no to being lazy, So if you said no to somebody, it was like you didn't try hard enough. And that thinking was, got us. That was the thinking that helped us make the proverbial 999 calls to get the yes, but it also backed us into a corner later because you start to get traction on, like you described, on saying yes to everybody, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of stuff going on, and you begin to resent actually some of the stuff that you've invited into your life. It's not like somebody, put it on you. You kind of invited it, and then it's too much, right? It's too much on you, too much on your people, and I think a lot of companies get there and then they don't solve it like you did. So I want to talk about that transformation in your thinking. And the third thing that really resonated with me when you were going through that, Tony, was this. I call it leading by osmosis. You referred to it as sort of, it's in my head. Why can't you see what it is and actually do it the way I would do it? I had that like an illness, and I was always like, well, first of all, can't you read my mind, right? And then second of all, can't you model what I'm doing? Like, can't you see that I see this needs to be done and I do it? And if you're paying attention, you should then see that needs to be done and do it. And I was sort of treating everybody as if, one, they were a mind reader, and two, they were exactly like I was. And then I was getting frustrated about it because I was like, man, how can you be so, you fill in the word. And that was a real struggle for me. And it took me really getting into a bad place before I started to figure out what I was doing and all the flaws with it when it came to that kind, like, just give people the information they need to do the job and they'll do it. But it's very hard for me. How did you, what happened besides the guy sort of pushing the raise back at you? What else was going on where you finally etched into your window with that marker and said, this has got to change?
It was the combination of just conversation after conversation with clients that, Tony, when I used to work with you, I knew like everything just happened, and it was obvious. I would go into a company and I'd be able to say, oh, well, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, and let's just do it. Like, here's a proposal. And they'd be like, great, why did we wait a year of problems for this? and so, I was hiring people to be me, just like you were saying, Mike. And that is the exact wrong way to set up people for success. There's no clearly defined expectations of what success even looks like. It's leading by osmosis. As you were explaining, it just sounds silly, right? And I'm sure if as people listen to this, it just sounds like, how could I even do that? When you say that, but getting to that point and having to apologize for setting up this new person in your company and screwing that up, and them having their new experience at their company is to call us 3 times because we forgot the printer, forgot to add them to the email group, we forgot to add them, and I'm giving you some specific details. We didn't set the scanner to PDF instead of JPEG. And I remember these conversations. You've been my IT guy for 10 years. How do you not know? How many times do I have to tell you, I'm sorry, I'll try hard? I couldn't try hard. I couldn't fix it with me exerting. I had gone as far as I could with me being ultimately responsible for everything, and knew that I had. So I realized being a good engineer doesn't make a good business. I need to figure out how to make a good business. And that's when I started my journey, just reading business books. So I started reading Jim Collins' Good to Great, and I thought it was wonderful, but how the hell do you do that? I thought it was like, sweet, I want all those things. Right people, right seat. I want the fly. I want all those things. The hedgehog concept. Awesome. How do I do that? And then came across Vern Harnish, who's he wrote the Rockefeller Habits, really like that. Started getting into Pat Lencioni and his fable style stories. I thought were absolutely amazing. And then came across Traction by Gino Wickman, And it was a blueprint, right? So as an engineer, I could follow a blueprint like crazy, and was able to say, this is it. This is where I'm going to focus my energy on building a company with um, with a strategy, with a plan, a simple plan on two sides of one piece of paper that outline where we're going, what we're going to do. We're going to create an accountability chart with clearly defined roles. There's going to be core processes for those people to follow in those roles. And so it was kind of interesting. I thought that I was just this company of just, no matter what, it's always just going to be reactive. That's IT. And as I realized, we started creating structure just by looking in these thousands and thousands and thousands of issues that we've supported. Well, which ones took the most time to fix? Mm-hmm. Could we have prevented those? You know what? If I would have just checked this box here on this screen, I could have completely prevented this 12-hour issue of downtime. And so I just started creating a checklist of things that we could have prevented and make sure that this box is checked the next time. And so I created a role that just goes through this checklist. We created hundreds of these checks. Yes or no? Is it set up this way? If it's yes, good. If it's no, we got to do something about it. And so as we created roles that were designed to document a new user setup, to create a new user welcome letter, God forbid. It doesn't seem like IT. We're not fixing stuff when we're drafting a welcome to the company. We're so excited to have you, and create an experience. And I started realizing that I could use system and structure to then, which is my engineering mind, to then come into creating an experience for people to feel some joy or excitement. And then I love that. And so we just started going deeper on that. And as we started this journey, I went from hundreds of clients down to, I realized, to do this process and then to have another role that just goes through it from a business strategy, that process takes time, takes people that aren't inexpensive. And we have a minimum that we got to charge. If you're not subscribing to our monthly minimum, I can't do this process. If I can't do this process, I can't prevent issues or set up your users correctly. You're going to be upset. I'm not going to hit your expectations no matter what. And so of those hundreds of clients we had, 19 said, all right, well, we believe in what you're doing. It sounds good. We'll stay.
Hundreds to 19.
Yeah, it sucked. But I knew that was the only way that we were going to start creating an outcome and end result through process, through roles and responsibility. And knowing that, because I tried every other way. I had every tool you could ever fathom for monitoring, for proactive this, for that. I tried to engineer the heck out of this, Mike. And IT engineering does not fix or do roles and responsibilities. And so I had to switch it and fit that into roles and responsibilities. And once I started doing that and people started having better experiences, I realized, all right, this is where we're at. And this is what I got to keep going. And I'm going to keep working to create an experience that people are happy and excited about their technology. And that's what created space for me to sit back, because I wasn't running around like a chicken with my head cut off, just apologizing and reacting to stuff. And I had to do both for a while and find time to strategize and react, because there was both going on as we started leveling down the noise and the strategy started taking effect. So it took a lot of effort, not just from me, but from my team, which took a lot of convincing. But then I was able to start seeing more of where the industry is going and how what we've been doing is fundamentally flawed. And then I started understanding why IT can't help people, because we're so busy with these tools and these security updates and these patches, and really started going down another different path that started taking our journey to the next level.
And how did you feel when, you've got this great idea, we're bringing strategy, process, accountability, all of these things into the business. Oh, and by the way, we're also going to I'll say 80/20, the business, go from hundreds of customers. I know the math isn't perfect, but go from hundreds of customers to 19. How did you feel when you started executing the strategy and the numbers of clients started to drop? Because I don't know what your expectation was. The number of clients started to drop, and I'm imagining you start thinking to yourself, "Oh, holy crap!" And not just for the customer side, but like, oh, I've got a team to support hundreds of clients, and now we're going to have we're losing clients essentially intentionally, but still losing them. How did you deal with that, and how did you keep yourself feeling okay about that? And I'm asking you because I love 80/20, but I think it's one of the hardest things to get most leaders or entrepreneurs heads around, because as soon as they lose the one client that they actually wanted to lose, but they didn't, their mindset has always been to say yes, like yours and like mine, you say yes. So as soon as they start to say no to somebody, it just doesn't feel right, even though you've thought it out and the strategy seems very sound and this has to happen. It still doesn't feel good or right.
No. I had also found that I had broken some of my engineers. No matter what, I couldn't get them into the roles because they were so burnt out, Mike. The only time that they could get up and be ready to do something and be was when that fire came. And then after the fire was done, they're too exhausted to then go back and go through this darn documentation and do these things. It's like the rush of being the hero is there. And then after that, it's like, oh. And so I had literally broken some of my good friends that had been with me from the beginning that I had to help find other jobs and have tough conversations with people that I love. As we started adding responsibilities and all right, let's report our numbers in our huddle. These 5 people or 2 people are supposed to close 12 tickets a day. All right, you go around. All right, I got 10, but I'm going to bump it up. All right, I got 2 tickets. Okay, well, team, we got to rally around and help out our guy here. He's only able to close 2. What can we do to support you? No, I'm going to do it today. Next day, I got 2. Oh man! All right, well, let's rally. Let's help him out. And then eventually, within a few weeks of that, of like actually having that accountability, people would realize that this new direction we're taking isn't right for them. And so they would leave themselves. And we went through this process. We went from 24 employees down to 8 at our very lowest point. And it was gut wrenching to go through that. In addition to having a conversation with clients that have been paying me, $800, and now we're saying it's got to be $3,000 a month for our service. And it's ludicrous for them. That just doesn't make sense. Well, I understand what you're saying, but the outcome you want requires this. Oh, I don't really care. It's not that big of a deal for us. Well, it was a big deal 2 weeks ago when you were yelling my ear off and the ear off of my staff about how your business is losing thousands of dollars right now because this person can't work. Which one is it? Because I don't want to let you down. Some people would say, oh, I remember you were a snot-nosed punk. You're too big for your britches now. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just know I can't hit your expectations, and I'm trying to explain it. They didn't want to hear it. So I would help all of these people find a new IT company, transition all of our documentation, give them all like these offboarding projects. And I didn't charge them for it to just get them into a place because I wasn't able to fit the bill for them anymore and help support them off to a new provider. And that was tough. We're doing extra work there. And so I ended up losing a lot of money over the next, as we made this commitment. We started hitting some of the lowest points financially of the company's history, and it started getting really, really scary, Mike. I believed, but it wasn't working out so great from a financials perspective. And then And then it started working out a little. And so, no, this is the right thing to do. Push forward. I know this is the right way to go. What does our life look like when we're here? Convincing my team. Because when I figured it out, I was like, this is the answer, finally. And I had it all figured out in my mind. Telling my team to start going down another new path, because I had already found the answer before, it wasn't the answer with this tool or this new
Right.
shiny object.
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to present it to them, how to get, I'm asking you guys to do a lot. Ultimately, this is for you though. I don't want you spending your weekends in server rooms. And so going through the transition of talking to clients, talking to employees, trying to explain where we're going and why we're doing what we're doing, and then doing the hard work was really, really tough, Mike, to your point. It sucked. I don't want to go back to that at all.
And who along that way, Tony, were you talking to? I mean, who are you relying on? Because you're the face of this is going to be fine with all of your people, and this is intentional. This is part of our strategic plan. All of that. But it's hard. So I don't know. Are you the kind of guy that keeps it all inside? Or are you the kind of person who, relies on that the spiritual journey you had started on? You talk to who do you rely on?
So I wear it on my sleeve.
Okay. All right.
And so I did find finally a mentor that had done it before and helped explain the framework to me of his success that I leveraged and put inside of Traction. And one thing that's important to point out, Mike, I had several mentors previously that led me down the wrong direction. And so I say that because you have to be pretty cautious with who you're having mentor you, because it sent me down an additional several years of pain that I could have avoided with some not great advice for how to run our company.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that, and I had not really thought about that, but there's this whole aura around the word mentor. It's like, oh, I've got a mentor, which means that you've got someone who's really helping you go the right way. But you just said, anybody can be a mentor, I guess, and a mentor can take you down the wrong path as well as down the right path. I'd not really thought about that before.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the same thing is true with a therapist, with a doctor,
sure.
With anybody. You have to, but when you find the right mentor, therapist, doctor, partner, it's amazing what they can unlock. And figuring that out is part of everybody's journey, right? Getting your people picker dialed in is part of my journey. And so that helped. And then my wife, tremendous business mind. I begged her to leave her job and come, because she had true management skills. I would run things by her. Where I am wearing things on my sleeve, she processes. I talk, she processes. And having her as my confidant and my partner, and then she came into the business and started running more of the operations and instilling some of these frameworks and roles and responsibilities. And around there is when I realized that my technical experience and all those that I put in management roles was actually a handicap to the development of our business. And that we needed people with business acumen, management roles, not technical acumen. The technical people would try and fix things themselves. The people with business acumen would understand why the issue exists in our process and fix the process. And bam, that was a huge moment for us.
Okay, so you're basically saying that the the engineers, the IT specialists who were really good at what they did, you sort of took them and said, well, if they're good at that, I can put them in this role to run the business and they'll be good at that too, right? And then you said, oh, well, maybe not. Maybe that's not their unique ability. Maybe that's not what they're best at.
100%.
Yeah.
I learned that over and over again because it was counterintuitive for me. How could you be in an IT company and manage it if you don't know how to do the technology? Which seemed logical, and it was a leap of faith before I realized that it was a huge mistake. and that it's very difficult because it's a different mindset, a different skill set, a different art to manage than it is to manage people than technology. And so as we started getting our hands around that and started creating the process, we started building up and eventually got to a point where our journey came as I would bring on a new client, I would have to like help 3 or 4 offboard. And it was like running as fast as we could on a treadmill to really go nowhere. But as we got through that in about, I want to say 2018, and we had a client that we brought on board, we didn't have to double work. Man, Mike, it was like the sweet like nectar of success. It was like we have arrived. Finally. And we got through this, and I didn't have to work so hard. And so as I started doing that, that's like 2018 coincides to when I started realizing that our industry, like what we've been doing with servers since 1996, that technology has not changed. But to secure it and to have it work the way people want to work, to be able to work from anywhere with any device, anytime, requires so much tools. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. It was not built for that. And we were trying to adapt and make this technology platform work to the way people wanted to. And I just, I started adding more security tools and more things to help secure people still, because security was such a big thing. Ransomware was really, it started in 2014 and 2018. It was a big, everybody knew what it was. And, there was very recently another huge compromise of a large MS, like IT software that's in millions of computers that the federal government's involved with now to help identify what's going on and resolve it. And I just got to this point where I just felt like all of these tools are what was killing my business. There's got to be a better way. And that's when I really started seeing that Microsoft is partnering with some of these very sophisticated security tools. And I was like, well, why the heck is Microsoft Office using or partnering with these security tools, or Windows? That's not their bag. And I started going down the path of understanding what Microsoft is doing. And we're at this interesting, amazing time in technology, because what we've been doing for 20 years is no longer valid. It's virtually impossible to secure. And if you do try and do it, you're going to put all of your time into just that and have zero time left over for helping people actually use the technology and all these tools that you set up for remote access and VPNs, which I hate, and on and on and on. And so I got into this understanding, and I started seeing that this new method that Microsoft's doing with their cloud services instead of servers kind of takes us back to the old days of IBM and a mainframe. Back in the old days, IBM took care of the hardware. It was the company hired a developer, and the developer would work directly with the business with open conversations. Hey, can you help me get a report to look like this? I need this certain bit of information. Hey, can you help me add this extra input field into our input? Okay, does it look like this? Oh, no, I can't do that. But how about this? And there was this direct line of communication, right? And if there was a problem with the mainframe, you just called IBM. Mm-hmm. And IT at the time was about helping the business do things more efficiently. And there was a great relationship with IT. And with the advent of servers from Microsoft, we started kind of shifting from, I need to take care of the server, I need to back up, I need to manage, I need to monitor, I need to patch. and all of our time in that so that we don't have any downtime, any disruption. Any disruption is it's like a black eye for IT. And so we started getting in this world of, we don't want people to notice we're here. We don't want to disrupt the business at all. We'll start putting in new systems that look just like the old system so that we don't disrupt the business. But what's the point of even doing that? The disruption is where most of the benefits would lie. And so Microsoft is saying, we're going to help you get back. We're going to manage the mainframe for you. And we're going to have IT now turn more of their focus into people and process, because you're not going to have to upgrade a firmware in a system ever again. You're just going to have to understand what technology people are using, set it up properly, because skills are more sophisticated. So you're going to want to make sure that you're certified and trained and know how to actually do this stuff. But you do the sophistication on the back end so users and people can have a very easy native experience. And then let's focus on how they're using it and see how we can improve their day. And so once I started seeing that there's this new fundamentally different way of managing IT, and it kind of put me in the spot of, wow, that means we could do more of what I truly love, is focus on people. And so we just started really getting deep into, for instance, 150 million people used Teams during the pandemic. I don't know too many other than the people that I have direct correspondence with that I usher them to. How many of them had any training whatsoever on how to use Microsoft Teams? Very few.
I didn't have any. Yeah, we use it. I didn't have any training. I just clicked the link and I was there.
Yeah, it popped up on my computer. It looks like it's really good for productivity. I'll give it a shot.
Right.
And it is a phenomenal tool that replaces so many other tools and costs. It replaces our file server. 60 to 70% of my email has gone away because I'm able to just have synchronous conversations through chats. My video conferencing service, my webinar service, my phone system. And it is really, really, really difficult to get ransomware if you have your file server in Teams. So the security is much better too. There's no VPN required. I'm not digitally chained to my office and some server anymore. I can access it from any device, anywhere, anytime, at a much higher clip of security. If some sort of ransomware does happen, God forbid, I click a button to set up an automatic artificial intelligence detection to say, wait a second, you usually change 10 files, Mike. You just changed 10,000. That's not right. I'm going to roll back those changes. I'm going to block your user account. I'm going to start scanning your computer, and I'm going to notify IT that there's a problem before anybody else gets up, and prevent this from impacting the business. And then I'll let you know when Mike's computer's clean and tell you where all this stuff came from, what email he accidentally clicked. And so if I'm not worried about that stuff all the time, I could turn my focus on to people, and we started creating roles that are just on training and helping people say, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do that. And that became addicting. That's when we started having an impact on the people that we serve, because now we're doing the things that save them time at work, and ultimately leading to that spiritual journey I had when I was 23. Go live your best life, get your stuff done at the office easier, faster, better, so that you can focus on the other things that you're passionate about in life. And now I'm honed in on what my purpose is as a person, because I'm not just fixing a computer and waiting for this reactive spiral to take me down. I'm literally having an impact to help people have better lives.
And so you've by the way, you went through a bunch of features there in Teams that I had no idea about. I know how to use Teams for meeting, but I had never thought about half the things you started saying Teams was provided, could do, first of all, and then provided superior security for. Thank you. So I didn't know. I gotta up my education on Teams. But I love how so many people, I think in IT, it's sort of like, how much complexity can we build in, not how much simplification can we do. And I don't think that's intentional. I think there's a mix, sort of what maybe you said. Your clients think, oh, I need this because my friend runs this and they say it's great, so I want this. Okay, so you get this, and then it has to communicate with all the other things. Even if something as simple as your phone system, as you mentioned with Teams, if you have a separate phone system, it has to play nice with everything, and all of that stuff ends up being, there's nothing that doesn't impact the other thing, right? So you're taking the opposite approach, and you're saying, hey, all of those things are great, but this tool that Microsoft has, or the suite of tools that Microsoft has, really does all that stuff. Let me show you how. And you can simplify your life, reduce your expenses, increase your security, not need me at the worst possible time, probably, when it's super inconvenient for your people and for me, be able to do the, work at home or flexible work or whatever and not have to worry about anything. That's a unique
game changer.
Is a game changer, yeah.
And this is where, so my business journey was, I started adding tools to solve a problem. That's every business's journey. I have a problem. I need some sort of project management. I'll get Asana or Trello for light project management. I need a phone system. I'll get RingCentral. I need a webinar. And meetings. I'll get Zoom. I need security. I'll get antivirus software. I need a spam filter. I'll get some third-party spam filter from email. And you eventually just look like this giant splatter of so many different tools that kind of work together a little bit. And how do you train your people on all those things? How do you onboard and offboard people? How do you make sure you get rid of all of those licenses? It's very, very time consuming just to manage all of these different tools and very expensive. And that was really the source of that, if you ask me, was kind of from the Windows server. You had to add all of these components to it in order to make all of these different things happen. And it was really complex to do these things with Microsoft stuff. And so we just started adding different tools. And you get to a point where you realize this is actually weighing me down. I'm paying more. I'm less secure. And I have full-time people that are just basically dedicated to just managing these tools that they're maybe good at some, but you can't be great at all of them. And so that's kind of, and Microsoft can't really advertise this, right? When they have a Super Bowl commercial for Teams, they can't say, oh, did you know it's this and this and this and this? Right. It's too much. It'll make your head pop off. And so that's really what this amazing time of IT is about. It's helping businesses see that we can drastically simplify, have less stuff, do more with it. And then actually, because we have less stuff, we can show your people how to use these amazing, it's productivity software. It's the world's foremost productivity cloud designed to make people more productive. Let's show them how to use that and watch what happens to your organization. I get pumped up when I start talking about that, Mike.
Yeah, I can tell, and I'm not you, and I'm a little pumped up by what I'm hearing. So here's what I want to know, Tony, from 7/7/2014 to today, which happens to be 7/7/2021. What's been the difference in your life and your business and your approach to life? And how and what's the impact been? Like,
so in 2014, my day was planned for me. No matter what I had on my calendar, my day was going to hit me in the face with whatever was coming my way. And it was always a surprise. My financial well-being was mysterious because some months would be maybe good, some months not so good. I didn't really know what was coming, which created stress as I had, especially as I had children, and I started putting a lot of energy into wanting what's best for them, and concern, and that ego would creep in about keeping them safe now, and it's more than just me.
Right.
And so I went from a lot of, I had plenty of sleepless nights, Mike, of wondering and worrying, and it's nice because your mind, when it's the middle of the night, plays wonderful stories about your kid. You and your children are going to be homeless on the side of the street, and it just starts. It can go rampant, and it's just like this beautiful symphony of terrible things starts coming your way, and you just got to stop that music, which is easier said than done. So juxtapose that with now, not just is my day and week planned, but my quarter is planned, my year is planned, my next 3 years, my next 10 year. I have a target of where I'm going. Everybody in our organization knows where we're going because we share our vision with everybody regularly. They all understand how important they are and what the imperative nature of what their role brings and their responsibility, and how their success contributes to our own success, and how we can reward them for helping us all achieve our goals. We're all working towards something together, which at the end of the day is making people more productive. When we do that, they have better lives. And when we're hitting on that, everything just flows so well. Like that energy flows through us in such a positive way that good things just come our way. And so it's a lot less stressful. And there's still stress, still human, still like as we grow and scale and we're doing a much better job than we did, it's still stuff that happens that we have to work through. But we have a team now that's capable of doing that. We've got leadership in our company that is owning and running their departments. And so it feels good. And I'm happy. And I'm going to take off in a little bit and go to watch my kids. They have a swim meet at 2:00, which I couldn't have done before.
Right.
Not working every weekend, every night. I'm reading. I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying my wife. I'm enjoying what we're doing together.
It sounds like you've created the freedom that being an entrepreneur is supposed to create. Like freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of purpose, right? That's what you've been able to do.
A heck of a lot more so than I had. So, and I have the mentality, Mike, I'm never satisfied. I'm always like, there's always a new target, right? So
yeah,
I'm never,
nothing wrong with that.
I look back, but you have to look back like you just made me do, to every now and then and say, wow, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Because I push, and we can never get there fast enough. And I will never, I can't change who I am innately, but as we look back, it's as a team, because it's not just me. I've got a great group of people here. It's worth celebrating, and we do, because we're building something awesome.
Well, Tony, this has been a fascinating conversation. I'm so glad that that we got to go on this journey together today, and I know my listeners will be really inspired by, because so many of them, so many of us, so many people face the, this sort of the exact same scenario of, just getting in over your head, and where you're always on a hamster wheel, or you're always putting out fires, and it just becomes who you are until you can't take it anymore, and then you don't know what to do. And you've given us all a path as to what you did that worked and took a lot of courage to do, but maybe it gives us all the opportunity to sort of live vicariously through you with our thoughts and say, how bad could it be? This is bad. What I have now is bad. So how bad could it be if I put some structure into my life, if I knew where I wanted to go, and if I just started on that path and I was committed to it? How bad could it be? So
yeah, and it kind of finds you. It's like the universe, it throws like pebbles at you saying, hey, maybe check this out over here. And then it throws like a stone, and then pretty soon it drops a boulder on you and says, stop doing that. Try this other way.
Right. Yeah.
So if you could listen to those pebbles before they turn into boulders, it's wonderful. But thank you for that, Mike. That was extremely kind of you to say that. And I'd be happy to help any listener that is on the same journey, because I love this stuff, and seeing the difference and looking at it from my technical business as a business instead of a technical organization or providing technical skills. It's a journey for, I think, pretty much every entrepreneur. You are an engineer in whatever your craft is as you're building out your business, right?
Right. How do you want people to connect with you, Tony?
So the best way to connect with us is to join us every Tuesday for Teams Tuesday. This is where we offer, and I do this personally, it's probably my favorite thing I get to do. We offer training for teams, and we design this for our clients, but we realize that everybody benefits if they just come and see a little bit of how Microsoft Teams is intended to be used from Microsoft. It's really intuitive with a nudge. So we give you that nudge to say, oh, that's how we're supposed to use it. Oh my gosh, that's going to save me so much time. So if you go to amcmodernit.com/Teams Tuesday, you can come register and get live interactive training with me and our modern education manager, and a few other people from our team are always there. And join us for let us give you a little bit of, oh, that's awesome.
I am going to sign up for Teams Tuesday because, as I said, I need some help there. So thank you so much for that offer and for what you're doing, and thank you so much for sharing your story on today's show, Tony. It was really enjoyed it. A lot of fun.
It was my pleasure, my honor. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How'd It Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How'd It Happen podcast.